In today's video, I want to share with you a powerful experience that I had of dying for a few minutes and meeting God. Back in 2008, when I was just 19 years old, I was working at a local golf course in my hometown as a cook during the summer break from school. And one day after work, I remember finishing up around 6 p.m. and then heading out to a friend's house who lived about a mile away. As I was walking there, I was just enjoying the fresh air, listening to music, and everything seemed pretty normal. But little did I know that this would be the last walk that I would ever take. Upon arriving at my friend's house, we hung out for a bit, and then around 7:30 p.m., he decided that we were going to go to a nearby bar that was about a 10-minute walk from his place. So we grabbed our keys and headed out. But after only taking a few steps, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, and then my vision started to blur. I remember thinking to myself, oh no, this can't be good. And then I collapsed to the ground. The next thing I knew, I was dead. When I say that I was dead, I mean that my heart actually stopped beating and I didn't have a pulse. And yes, this was confirmed by paramedics and doctors who were called to the scene. When they arrived, they tried performing mouth-to-nose resuscitation, but it was no use. After 45 minutes of trying to revive me, I was eventually brought to the hospital where they ended up putting me on life support. My mom and dad were called in and told that I had suffered a cardiac arrest, meaning that my heart had stopped beating for an unknown reason. Because my body had been without oxygen for so long, there was irreversible brain damage, and they said that even if I did wake up, I would not be the same person because parts of my brain had already died. At this point, they let my family come in and say their goodbyes. I remember my dad holding me and telling me how much he loved me. And my mom rubbed my shoulders as she cried. They must have stayed in there for hours, but eventually they had to leave so that other patients could also get some rest. And as they walked out the door, I took my last breath and died. But this is where things get crazy. You see, even though my body was lying in a hospital bed hooked up to machines, my soul left my body and went straight to heaven. That's right. When I died, I went to heaven and I got to meet God. Let me explain. You see, when my dad walked out of the room, I took my last breath and died. But as I was dying, I remember leaving my body and floating above it. I saw the nurses and doctors rushing into the room and performing CPR, but I wasn't scared at all because I knew that I had just died. And as I floated out of the room, I saw my dad sitting in a chair crying. I remember thinking to myself, wow, this must be what death feels like. Then as I continued floating, I started to rise up higher and higher until I was hovering over my dad. I looked down and saw him crying while holding a picture of me. It was at this moment that I realized that I had died. I knew this because in the Bible, it says that when someone dies, their soul leaves their body and goes directly into the presence of God. I was no longer in the hospital room or outside. Instead, I found myself in a beautiful place with streets made out of gold. There were trees everywhere with leaves of silver, and when I looked up into the sky, I saw 7 golden arches that reached all the way to the heavens. It was at this moment that I heard a voice that said, "Welcome to heaven." I turned round to see who said this, and there I saw the most glorious sight I had ever seen. It was Jesus Christ himself. He had a white robe on and his face was radiant. I wanted to speak to him, but as I tried to open my mouth, I realized that I couldn't make a sound. I was speechless because standing before me was Jesus Christ himself. I remember falling to my knees and saying, "Jesus, I want to follow you." But he replied, "No, it's not your time yet. You still have things to do here on earth." And with that, he touched my forehead and sent me back to my body. As I returned to my physical form, I found myself being brought back to life. The doctors and nurses were able to revive me, and I ended up making a full recovery. After the doctors learned that I had died for 45 minutes, they did further tests and determined that I had suffered from something called commotio cordis, which is basically a rare medical condition, where a sudden, unexpected emotional stress can trigger a heart attack. In my case, they believe that the stress of having a heart attack was too much for my body to handle, and that caused my heart to stop beating. Anyway, my story made national news, and I was interviewed by many different media outlets. I also ended up doing an interview with a local pastor who posted it on YouTube. And I never thought that this video would reach many people, but somehow it has over 1 million views and thousands of comments. Many people have asked me why I was chosen to be revived when others who die aren't brought back to life. To be honest, I don't know the answer to that question. All I can say is that I am grateful to God for giving me a second chance at life and for showing me what it is like to be in heaven. Now, I want to address some of the comments that I've received on the video. Some people have asked me if I saw God or if I just saw a vision. Well, I saw Jesus Christ himself, who I believe is God. And I know that what I saw and experienced was real. Some people have also asked me if I saw the pearly gates. Well, I didn't. But I did see streets made out of gold and trees with silver leaves. These are described in the Bible. So I believe that what I saw was accurate. Other people have said that they don't believe me and that I am making this all up for attention. Well, I understand why some people might think that. After all, it does sound crazy to some people that someone could die for 45 minutes and come back to life. But I don't care what other people think. I know what I experienced was real. Now, I want to share with you a message that I hope will inspire and uplift your spirit. The first thing that I want to say is that heaven is real. I know this because I saw it for myself. When I was dying, I saw the streets of gold and the trees with silver leaves. And I also saw Jesus Christ, who welcomed me to heaven. This shows that heaven is a real place. And I believe that when we die, our souls go there to be with God. The second thing that I want to say is that death is not the end. Yes, it may seem scary to some people, but I believe that when we die, we go to be with the Lord and we can still do his work even after our bodies have died. For example, in the Bible, it says that when Lazarus died, he was carried by angels to Abraham's bosom. This means that even though his body was buried in the ground, his soul was in heaven with God. The third thing I want to say is that God has a plan for each and every one of us. When Jesus sent me back to my body, I knew that I had to do his work here on earth. This gave me a renewed sense of purpose, and I've been sharing my story ever since. I believe that God has a plan for each and every one of us, and that we should try to fulfill it. Finally, I want to say that no matter what happens in life, we should always trust in God. When I was dying, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that I had faith in Jesus Christ, and that gave me peace. I believe that no matter what we go through in life, we should always trust in God because he has a plan for each and every one of us. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope that it brought you closer to God. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up button below and share it with your friends and family. Also, if you want to hear more of my stories, please subscribe to the channel.